Hi everyone, this podcast is sponsored by Robots Ruin My Life. Be sure to use the link in the description below and use code RoboCast at checkout for 25% off your order.
I'm Tom, captain and driver of Monsoon,
I'm Sarah, team member of Monsoon.
and you are listening to the RoboCast.
Hello everyone, my name is SamElit64 and welcome back to the RoboCast with myself, Steve the AmericanKilljoy, World of Woodrow, David of Smeg, and at long last, the prodigal son has returned, and, son and daughter, I guess, Tom and Sarah from Team Monsoon. Yeah. Guys.
My bracket breaker team. Good deal.
You're welcome.
It's been far too long, guys. How have you been?
We're good. It's honestly great to be back. Yeah, thank you for having us again.
It's a joy. It's very strange because in the interluding sort of 3 or 4 years, we've become very good friends outside of robots as well. It's very unusual.
It's just nice to have a little catch up, you know.
Yeah. I mean, we saw each other last week, right?
We saw Guardians 3 last week. Fantastic.
Yeah. It was very good.
Was it?
Very
good.
Fun. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was really good fun. But we're not. I was not here to talk about pleasantries. We're here to talk about fighting robots. Let's.
Pleasantries.
Okay, we'll do some more pleasantries.
There's plenty of pleasantries in the episode. We can get to them.
There is. We will.
We have time for all.
Should we start off with your season to date before we crack on with some listener questions? Because it's a bit of a mixed bag. In a sense that you did lose twice, but performed well in the 2 losses, and then you had 2 fairly straightforward wins. Why don't you talk us through it about your season a little bit as a whole? Like how would you assess your return to BattleBots?
Yeah, I think we had a pretty strong preseason. 2 wins, I think 2 great wins and 2 close losses. So I think out of all the 2 and 2s, I feel like we're towards the top end of it. So I think it's a good year to have after being away for so long. And I think at this point, I'd like to think that we've proven that we've kept up with the field after being away for so long, because personally, that was honestly my biggest worry. Just what would happen if we come back after all this time, and can we still keep up with the big robots? And
because obviously all of the other teams, it's only really the British and European teams. So that's what, like 4 to 6 teams that have been away for an additional 2 seasons. So everyone else has had 2 more BattleBots seasons worth of being able to design, iterate, redesign, iterate, and essentially have done like 2 more tournaments than we have in the last couple of years.
Yeah, totally. And I honestly think our 4 fights were fairly matched. I think it was a good 4 to get. A mixture of robot types and some new people, some experienced people. One of them being a finalist. That's pretty cool.
I know. I was going to say that's a big kind of scalp to how. I know you fought Bite Forced, obviously a long time ago now, but
yeah, totally.
Whiplash since has become like a bit of a stalwart and always is just dangerous. And was that kind of the one you kind of circled and thought that's who we've got to be aiming at really as the big threat?
I'm not entirely sure, because out of all of those 4, one of them is in theory supposed to be like the nasty one. But I don't know which one I would consider.
That's 3 of them.
Yeah. I mean,
if you were looking on paper, Black Dragon surely is the one that should beat you, the nasty one, as you say.
I think previously. Yeah, I think they were always going to be a tough one, but to be honest, Death Roll is the one I was the most worried about in terms of damage. I'm just glad it was our last fight, because if we did get written off or took heavy damage, then at least it's our last fight, so who cares?
It's a very fair point. So you went 2 and 2. One thing I think we kind of have to bring up as well is the use of your appeal.
Oh yeah,
because you used it against Whiplash. Any regrets? Obviously, it was unsuccessful, and in the end, your decision got downgraded to a unanimous loss in the end, which it surprises me even still. But going into the tournament, was that sort of playing on your mind a little bit? If you get a close judge's decision.
I'm not sure it was, because when you get to the tournament stage, everyone is looking to just win. So it's odds are it's going to be a knockout, or they're going to let you get counted out. Very rarely do you get any judges' decisions in the tournament rounds, because at that point, as I said, people are just trying to win. They're not necessarily looking to make great TV like they were in the preseason stages. They just want to win. So that's just how it is. So no regrets. I don't think using it then. It was the right time, and it was a very close fight.
One of the best of the season, I think, so far.
Yeah, totally. And for our first proper televised main event, I'm very happy with it. It was a cracking fight, and the Vasquez family are just awesome people. So, there were no hard feelings there between us and them at all. So
excellent. We have, as always, scoured the internet for some listener questions. Thank you to everyone who submitted their responses to us. There were some excellent ones in there. First question comes from about 5 or 6 different people, is where did the name Monsoon come from originally?
Where did the name come from? So I was talking to Sam Griffin, like on a PlayStation chat, I think, at the time. And we were trying to come up with a name for a robot, because we knew that BattleBots was happening, and we knew that we were going to be applying together with Tim and Sarah, of course. And we wanted to get a name, and we thought, oh, okay, the robot, when it drives forwards, it rears up a bit like a wave, a bit like a watery thing, a bit like a. I'm not sure now that I think about it, what is the link between Monsoon and I don't really know, actually. I mean
the wiki's listening very closely, so be careful.
I was going to say arguably Riptide would be a pretty good name, but...
right?
Steady on there.
Oh dear.
But that was it. The link came from the rearing up, a bit like the ocean, a bit like water, a bit like a monsoon. I mean,
it's a stretch, but I like it nonetheless.
Yeah, a monsoon stirs the ocean up,
That's it. I think I also like to claim that it's because a monsoon, if you go on Wikipedia, is a reversing windstorm. And monsoon reverses and flips and goes both ways. And
that was
we'll go with it.
We'll go with it. Though.
I totally
nice save there, Tom.
That's where it came from. So the name suits, I think, even better now. So and it's fun to shout as well. That was
of course. Absolutely. Yes, it is. We did have a question about asking us all to do a monsoon chat, and I know we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it today.
We know how damaged our voices were after recording,
especially after
we know how
bad
Tim was after a number of fights.
Yes, we'll say that for a special down the line. Why not?
Okay.
Question from Killer Draco on Twitter asks, in terms of the Monsoon's performance this season, after a few years off, has it met your expectations or has it gone above it?
I think it's certainly gone above. Yeah, I would say. Yeah. As I said before, personally, the goal for me was just to prove that we've kept up with the field. So, I mean, just getting this far is incredible. So, making the tournament to me proves that we are in that top group of robots. So, getting the win over Cobalt is just the icing on the cake. So
this episode definitely helps. Definitely helps
cement you in that kind of bracket. Yes, 100%. Steve, over to you.
Over to me. So Mark Smith, builder of many Beetles, Sprocket Raccoon being one of them. Given that the sides of the robot can move independently from each other as well as the weapon module, how is it held together to prevent it from coming apart in battle? Other people also asked about the pivoting chassis and how it's complemented its originality. I may or may not have had an Antweight that did a similar thing after I saw Monsoon. So, it's a tricky thing to keep together. Please let us know how the magic works.
Yeah, I mean, firstly, hi Mark, love your robot. Rocket Raccoon is just fantastic. I love it. The robot essentially it's easy to think of it as 2 separate robots that are bolted together. So each drive pod has its own electrical system. It's got a drive motor, a weapon motor, and it's got the controllers and components and batteries to go with that. And each pod has its own switches as well to turn it on. So it is essentially just 2 robots bolted together.
On either side of the weapon bulkhead.
On either side of the weapon bulkhead. So the weapon motors are stored inside the weapon bulkhead section, and the wires from those motors go through. We call them sort of custom bushings. So it's like bushings with holes in them that the wires go through into each pod's speed controller for that motor. If that makes sense.
That's so
Yeah.
silly.
Yeah.
I remember distinctly, we mentioned a featherweight event we did a few years ago before we started recording this, and it's like, I remember trying to feed wires through the weapon shaft that time. That was an experience.
Straddle.
Yeah, do you remember that?
That's the thing. So Straddle actually works in the same kind of way, where it's two pods, and there's wires going through the weapon shaft.
It was so dumb.
You've never lived.
You guys,
so you've had wires going through the weapon shaft.
these are why slip rings exist. You guys are crazy.
So in terms of mechanically, it's actually quite simple. It's just bushings with holes in that the wires go through.
Right.
And to limit the amount of rotation that the weapon bulkhead can move, if you look on the robot, there's kind of like a slotted section just behind the main cutouts.
Just above where it says tramper.
So
Above
here.
the tramper.
Here.
Yeah, on the bulkhead. There.
Oh, there, that way.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
So that slot that is
It's like a curve, like a
like a curved
semicircle.
slot that goes from the top to the bottom, and inside the pods you've got a big bolt that kind of
Oh,
slides
it's just like, it's like just like sits inside that housing.
yeah,
That's
it.
that's so good.
It's quite simple, but the
Yeah.
simpler the better with BattleBots. So.
Oh my god, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Monsoon isn't the machined parts for Monsoon are very basic.
Mm.
Like, I think we worked it out. There's only 7 parts that are like CNC
7 different parts, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
in total.
Like when you compare it to something like a Quantum or something that's very different, different worlds apart, isn't it? Really, but
That's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Yep. Jeremy Lloyd, creator of Clash of Bricks on YouTube, posted this comment on Facebook, weirdly. What are the most tangible differences between competing in Robot Wars and BattleBots?
Ooh, we get this one a lot, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Scale.
scale.
Yeah.
You know what? I think over the years the difference has only increased. I would
Yeah.
say.
Mm.
Robot Wars and BattleBots, I think, are both fantastic shows, and what they do brilliantly. But they are definitely different. Robot Wars is more about, father and son building what they can with scrap out of the bin in their shed, and with Robot Wars as well, you generally only have one robot. So when you only have like an hour or two in between fights, you really have to be on your game, and it's more a game of how quickly can you rebuild. Whereas with BattleBots, it's just like, how to describe it? Everyone turns up with multiple robots. That's now a requirement. And the levels of damage you get on BattleBots are just so above what you could get in Robot Wars. Like, I remember in Robot Wars, one of the most damaging fights was Sabretooth Aftershock, I think. Will went in for like more hits, and that was a big dramatic moment. But that's just a standard BattleBots fight now. Like every fight is like that.
I think the way it's been compared to me before is like, Robot Wars is a game show, whereas BattleBots is Formula One. Like it's the level and the scale is just completely different.
Yeah, totally. And honestly, I love both shows. I think they're both really great in different ways, and they have, I think, they sort of have a slightly different audience in that sense, because it's well, one is more about pure chaos and pure damage, and one's more about the experience of the show, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
And of course, the biggest difference being that one's still on the air.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll help.
Yeah.
That's more
One's
of a
on
network
Mech
problem,
Plus.
though.
Watch it now.
Indeed.
Not sponsored by that. However,
Yeah, we are
If they
still-
want to,
Yeah, get in touch, Mech Plus. We'll have a word. We'll have a word.
Yeah, honest.
Leading on that, Connor Smith on YouTube has asked, how do you think you would do if Robot Wars was still going on to this day?
Oh my god, I've thought about this quite a lot. I would love to have another go. I would love to.
Just go get some.
Would you enter something like Monsoon, or would you enter something maybe like Straddle?
Ooh.
Would that be more fun? To kind of mix.
Because
and
I mean,
match?
there is no huge to heavyweight huge over here, is there? So it's
Really good suggestion.
I mean, I don't know. So I think either way, I would love to have another go, because for me, Robot Wars was very brief.
yes.
Exceptional.
Yeah.
I just love to have another go, knowing what I know now, and with the robot that I know I've got. I think it could do pretty well. And I'd love to show what it can do. That'd be really cool. A heavyweight straddle would also be pretty good fun.
Not sure there'd be room for it in the garage.
Yeah.
Have to put it in the allotment. That's the only solution.
Yeah, like with the workbenches and stuff, there's probably like what 2 meters, if that, a meter and a half. I think the whole garage is 2.4 meters
When
wide.
it's full, yeah.
So the workbench is either side already. So
I do like having the small robot now, like Monsoon.
Yeah. It fits through the door.
It does.
Yeah,
That's a good
helps.
start.
Yeah, it's a much smaller robot than having seen both in the flesh. It's one of the few BattleBots I've seen. Like I can compare the two, and like Monsoon 1 was big.
It was a boat.
This is.
I mean,
that comes from
various
like
iterations of boat, right?
the person who built the Turon 1.
That's a proper boat.
Cruise ship, and
It was a cruise ship.
I think you could probably fit if we still had the Tauron 1 chassis, you could probably put Monsoon 3 inside of Tauron 1.
It's so tiny. Like if you get the chance to kind of compare the scale, I can't remember where was there a photo once where you kind of compared the two?
Yeah, we had an evolution time.
That was it. I feel like you need to kind of put that out there into the public ether, because honestly, it's so the two of them is just like the comparison is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah has asked if I can make like an evolution shirt with all.
100%.
100%.
That's all the impetus you need. Okay, this is where I feel like the listener questions take a slight turn, but
Let's have it.
Charlie Hubbard, friend of the podcast, asks, "What is your favorite drinking story that you and I share?"
Ooh.
That you want to publicize.
Ooh. How much did you drink on your stag night?
I had a fair amount. I didn't have that much. I was kind of extremely tired, and I was very grouchy when everyone turned up all at once. And I was so overwhelmed. I'm like, oh my god, everyone's just turned up, and I can't tell them to go away, can I? Really?
I was just thinking. So before then, do you remember when we did Ghetto Golf the first time, like in 2018?
Yes, I do.
So for anyone that doesn't know, Ghetto Golf is like crazy golf, but with a bit of an adult side to it, a bit of an adult theme.
Mm-hmm.
I've still got photos of you lying, like T-posing on the floor. You know what I'm gonna in front of the dildo course. It's fantastic. You can do golf and you get drinks, and we're not sponsored, but if they'd like to sponsor us, then
I reckon Monsoon would fit in really well. Playing some golf.
Definitely need to be a new shape of weapon bar, I think.
The golf club or something. I'm trying to think what my favorite is. I think maybe. I did enjoy the bevs this year because it was your birthday this year for the Bristol Bot Builders event.
It was.
And you had quite a lot. You had quite a lot. And
I've heard stories.
I think Rory kept giving you drinks all day, and then eventually you walk over to me. And then
it was my birthday, and Rory kept giving me drinks from like behind the bar, and I was doing straddle fights while a little bit. I felt
a bit waved.
I was as wobbly as Straddle's wheels were. I think. It was.
And then you grabbed hold of the microphone at one point and started saying things that you probably shouldn't have said on a microphone, and in front of children as well.
Thwack a straddle there.
It was Straddle as a thwack bot. That was it.
Yeah, it was good fun. That was a good time. Yeah, I'll have to wait for other events in the year this year, maybe for some more drinking stories.
I mean, Rapture's not far away, is it?
It's not. It's not.
That's the next drinking shenanigans event.
I'm sure. Yeah. Let's move on quickly because
I was going to say
we're gonna get demonetized.
Just bleep out this entire part.
So Andy Davies, builder of Red Dead Redemption, president of RoboDojo in the UK, asks, which has the better atmosphere to compete at? The BattleBots, like in Vegas, or the Cross Keys pub in Liverpool?
Oh my god! I mean, anything really?
It's pretty different.
I've been told that. Tom, you have two wheels and you think you're odd.
That was a wild day. That was incredible.
Just saying, if you ever want, like, to increase the atmosphere of an event, just go
or just add drink. I think adding drink is easy way of doing it.
Yeah.
Find
I
your
don't think they
local-
allow drinks near the battle box anyway, so
No.
I think,
not that
I think
night.
they were there for the football
No.
later in the day as well, so that probably contributed it to it.
It
Yeah.
was a very special atmosphere. That yes.
It was something.
Hopin on Discord asks simply Drizzle or Stratus.
Oh,
Choose your favorite child.
Pick a favorite.
Yeah.
Drizzle's up on the shelf, and Stratus I'm currently working on.
So Stratus is on the shelf above Drizzle. So
Oh! Ooh.
I think my heart is with Drizzle, but my brain is with Stratus right now.
Okay.
We'll wait for you to put your body back together.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know,
It's a tough
hey,
one.
it's hard.
I've had a lot of fun with Drizzle, but I think I've got to the point where I'm realizing that Drizzle isn't going to win anymore.
Mhm.
Just because it's so daft and it's so uncontrollable.
Mhm.
So for now, I'm quite enjoying Stratus because it's good fun. It's good laugh. But I'm not done with Drizzle. I think the plan at the moment is one day to go to Norwalk and bring Drizzle and Stratus because they fit nicely into a bag. So
That's one nice thing about little BattleBots or little, I mean, not BattleBots, copyright. Little combat robots is that you can just bring them with you in your bag. You know, with a heavyweight, you got to crate it and pay import taxes, and
Wait several months for it to come back in the post. You know.
It wasn't too inconvenient waiting for the crate to come back this year, because although it came back like a month later than we expected, it just gave us more time to refurb the garage.
Yeah, there you go.
True.
Oh, there's space now. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no
exactly.
250-pound weight on the ground.
Well, it's not just the one 250-pound crate, 250-pound robot. Our crate was 800 kilos.
Oh, my goodness.
That was like
It's a
two
tea,
whole
isn't it?
robots, pretty much all of our hand tools, spare pieces.
a big box of tea bags.
Yeah.
We
At
also
least 500 grams there.
So we had I had a question that we cut, but we'll address it. How does Monsoon take her tea?
I think with a little bit of milk, a little bit of sugar, a little bit of ant grinding dust as well in there.
Do you
That's
take the
light,
tea bag
yeah.
out first and then add those things, or does it stay in?
You take it out and then you pour in some of that Monsoon Thomas the Tank Engine blue paint.
Yeah.
There we go.
And then just pour it all over the robot. Good.
That leads on quite
Oh.
nicely to the next question, really.
It does lead on quite nicely to the next question, because some strange idiot called David of Smeg asked the question, was there any regrets in trusting Jevon to find the right colour of paint?
You asked the colorblind guy to find you the
I
right
was
shade
going
of
to
blue.
say, I didn't realize until after the fact. I mean, thank you very much for fetching us paint constantly throughout the filming. You guys did a job. Thank you.
We did one of the jobs of all time there.
Exactly. You did a very job. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Hey, I gotta say,
that
the
happened.
first autos that we went to, they were super hyped that we were getting paint for BattleBots and it was going to be on the show, and they were.
The second one we went to, couldn't care less. Just
There you go.
didn't care. Couldn't.
Oh dear.
Oh dear me.
Oh,
I can
well.
hear Thomas in the background again.
Yeah. Anyway,
I think it's getting closer.
the last listener question before we move on to some fights is from friend of the podcast, Henry Strang. And Henry asks, which Auntie Donna skit do you want them to do while they're doing their tour? He says that he wants Cowdoy. So any
He's
particular
canonically dead.
He is. It's a shame. Because we are going to see Auntie Donna later this year, which is very exciting.
We are. We got tickets.
We do have tickets.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's going to be good fun.
They're so daft, but like, I was just thinking the other day, like most of their stuff is just terrible. Not gonna lie. But like, there are some real gems in there. Like, back to the question. I think my favorite sketch that I hope they do is, I think it's in like the 3rd or 4th episode of their Netflix show. The one where they're doing the black and white football, and each time someone loses,
Oh
they
yeah.
go to war. That one had me in stitches. I love that one.
To fill in our American listeners, please inform us on what Auntie Donna is. I believe it's a comedy troupe, right?
They are a comedy trio from
Australian,
Australia. Yeah.
Okay.
And they are.
Absurdist comedy troupe.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you like
Yeah.
strong language, it's not. If you don't like strong language, it's not for you.
No,
If you
it's not
like
for you.
strong, if you like strong language, it's definitely for you.
Right,
Okay.
I think a bit like they're a bit like Monty Python. I think in the way they do their humor.
Yeah,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
Again,
more raw.
like Monty Python, most of it is pretty crap, but there are some gems.
yeah, there is some gold in there somewhere.
We're advocates for the significant Sims.
Yeah, I'm a bit, as a biased Sam myself. I'm not South African, but I do like.
But you could be.
I could. It's funny. This is going to complete tangent. The person who did my wedding cake is a female Sam, and she was South African. So there you go.
Unbelievable.
What are the odds?
Did she whisper to you that she's actually from Edinburgh or something like that?
Unfortunately, not. No, she didn't say that. We'll have some more listener questions later on, but for now, let's crack on with some fights. Starting with Black Dragon and RIPperoni.
This fight was so good, but
So good.
so sad.
Yeah.
I think the BattleBots have given it their fight of the week, and understandably
has,
so. Just pure
disagree.
chaos.
I
mean, I could
disagree
think of
for
one more,
completely
but-
non-biased reasons.
Honestly, the amount of punishment that Black Dragon was taking from RIPperoni was unbelievable, and the fact that they spontaneously combust as they are wont to do, and still kept going, and then
It's how they win.
Yeah,
The more,
go on
more
fire,
fire
win
equals
fight.
more win.
Yeah. No weapon. Just keep pushing, keep
It's the
driving. Something's going to
ultimate
happen.
T-pose is like, I'm on fire now.
Yeah.
I mean, Tom, obviously you fought, Tom and Sarah, you fought Black Dragon earlier in the season. Watching this, does it kind of make you a little bit happier that like you stopped and like didn't take too much damage? Because obviously RIPperoni went the whole 3 minutes basically, and did all that damage to Black Dragon and still couldn't knock them out.
Yeah, watching it did remind me very much of our fight because in terms of geometry, RIPperoni and Monsoon are quite similar with the weapon way out front and the way
you got two separate pods, two separate robots kind of bolted together.
And the way they were dealing with exchanges, kind of batting them away on a hit, it was very similar to our fight, except we couldn't keep going and they did. So, but I mean, fair play to Black Dragon; they just don't die.
Yeah,
and it's incredible.
It's just a wild machine. It just the fact that it could take the amount of hits that it did from RIPperoni, which let's face it, has beaten Endgame and Copperhead this season, and given out some monster hits along the way to others as well.
It's punching up at the best of the sport. It's thoroughly deserved its spot in the season, and it's thoroughly deserved the love and support it's received in the community. It's not just a funny pizza robot. It is that, but it's also an actual certified killer.
It's a very dangerous pizza bot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did enjoy as well the little slow-mo that they kind of highlighted with their flywheel motor flying off.
Yes.
in the middle of the show as well. That was really good to see that they actually focused in on that and said this is probably why they lost, or one of the reasons why they lost.
Dude, I don't know, man. Black Dragon.
They lost the side of drive quite early on, did RIPperoni?
Yeah, but embodying the power of the Lucky Duck, and with the Lucky Duck on the front, which,
it was
by
filthy.
the way,
It was filthy.
Yeah,
it was
awful at the
full
end.
duck.
Stick it in the washing machine. Jesus Christ, Black Dragon, come on.
Yeah.
I do think had the fight gone on for 3 more seconds, there's a chance RIPperoni could have won it.
Well, they would have won the judge's decision.
They would have won the
They were
judges.
winning.
It's
They were
likely.
definitely winning, I think. Yeah.
Black Dragon had a system down in their weapon for a long time. Okay, RIPperoni had lost their side of drive, but
Yes,
it
that's
was
important.
Yeah, I don't think it was enough to kind of detract from RIPperoni being the aggressor throughout. I know you mentioned the duck decal on the front. I hope they keep using it because I thought it was really funny. The fact that it's something different, right?
We got to be careful of keeping this in the dark because it looked more Jinx than Duck for me for a sec.
Gen
You know
1
what I mean?
Racially insensitive Gen
I
1
was
Jinx,
a little
right?
nervous.
Mr. Popo's back, everybody. We're in terrible danger.
Yeah.
I know, but it was a cool look. It's a cool look for Black Dragon. I don't know how it does for branding. I know they give Ribbot crap for repainting their robot. It makes it hard to brand.
It's
but
a frog.
Of course,
We know what a frog is.
We do know what a frog is.
But anyway,
this does bring the end of RIPperoni's season, which is a little bit of a shame, or at least in the main competition. I'm sure we'll see them in champions at
is
some
it
point.
still like the front runner for Rookie of the Year at this point?
It has
though?
to be.
Yes.
I mean, who else
Yeah.
is it going to be?
Yeah.
Like they're the only rookie that made the bracket, right? So
Yeah.
Unless like somebody does something in Sin City Slugfest and champions like drastically amazing, then this has it for me.
Yeah.
No, it's incredible. I think if they can get their reliability up, they'll be a real contender because that weapon is serious. And the flywheel really works. So yeah.
Any temptation for you to stick something else like that on, Tom, or just not possible?
Let's not wait for that.
We'd put on the motor, but then the first time we flip upside down, we just like shear it off like a pair of scissors.
Nice.
If you squish it going away, that wouldn't work.
Just
Well, your robot's part vacuum anyway, so
it's just
It's true.
I didn't.
see where I went. Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Too soon? Is it still too soon?
right in the weapon. That wasn't fair.
No.
We'll
We
say
solved that. We've got the little weapon motor covers.
We
now.
do. We've got some.
Yeah.
fun.
yeah, it all worked out. It all worked out in the
Yeah.
end.
Sometimes you got to learn the ways it has to fail. There's different ways for the bot to fail. Now it'll never fail like that
Yeah,
again.
it's basically just stop Rory from fixing everybody else's robots. That's the logic.
That's the trick.
Bless him.
Also, I love Julio at the end of this fight. He's just exasperated and just so happy.
I think they were relieved, if anything.
I would think so too, because that was getting close to being a judge's decision call. But they found a way to just survive long enough that, I mean, I'm just happy for Black Dragon. It's a great. They're a great group of guys and girls. It's it's good to see them have the success in the tournament.
100%.
Also, that duck needs a wash.
Yes, please wash the duck in the
Yes.
off season. I hope they do. I hope they do. Now
You could put a t-shirt on it, and then
you'll never know. They'll never know.
Exactly.
well, then they can wash the t-shirt.
There you go.
There you go. Okay, I feel like we have to discuss the next fight.
Oh boy.
Ooh.
So it is Monsoon and Cobalt.
Shocker that they've been drawn
So,
together.
My bracket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for context here, I don't think I've ever told you this, Tom, and this is a big a big deal for me. So my pre-season pick for the whole competition was Cobalt, and I made this prediction before I knew you were fighting them, and then when I found out that you beat them, I was like, do you know what? Fair enough. Do you know what?
Yeah.
Talk us
You're
through
welcome.
talk us through the fight. Come on, let's hear it all.
Oh, what a juicy fight! I mean, yeah, incredible fight, just wild. The moment we heard about the matchup, we were a bit like, oh god,
Yeah. You think?
Tim was immediately just like, we're screwed, is what he said.
Yes.
Yes.
You can swear on this podcast. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup, but
Mhm.
honestly, if you look at the geometry of the two robots, what you've got are two long forks on each robot and a big vertical spinning blade. It's in terms of like geometry and what they do, they both work quite similar. So on paper, I felt like before the fight it could be quite a close one, actually. I really thought that we had a fairly good shot. If you just go off records, though, of course, we're 2-2 and Cobalt is 3-1, I think.
Yeah.
Only lost a minute or so.
And their wins have historically always been just monstrous. They obliterate their opponents. So going off that, understandably, most people predicted that Cobalt would take it. So getting the win at this point just meant a lot because for me, I think this is a fight that a lot of people have been wanting for a while. It's the Brit spinner versus the Brit spinner. It's who's the best, who's the biggest, all that stuff. And to come away with the win is really special. And I didn't actually know what Dave said in his pre-fight interview until we watched it, so it just made it a bit more juicy. That's great.
I will say you do talk about the fact that like everyone was against you. Did you know about the poll before the fight?
We did, but we only this afternoon learned who that one person was because it was
it Rory?
It was 95% to 5%, but in terms of votes, it was 20 votes to 1 vote. And it was Craig Danby. So
Danby,
our pit neighbours, the Danbys.
Yeah.
He had faith, and his faith paid off.
Well,
He had something.
interestingly, in the audience, there were also 2 other people who ignored paper and decided that Monsoon was going to win this fight.
Well, I mean, we didn't ignore paper. We wrote it down on paper.
We did
thought
indeed
Monsoon
write
was
it down on
win.
paper.
This is the thing about me leaving filming. I think I would have been convinced. I would have been bullied.
We'd have
into
pulled you
picking
over
Monsoon.
to our side, and it would have helped you out in predictions.
Basically,
I
just
know.
Tim comes over and says, "What are you going to do?" And Tom will respond with, "What are you going to do?"
We're going to F them up is what we're going to do.
Exactly.
And I mean, first of all, I have to say that enormous crevice that you create at the front of Cobalt is just
It was just
unbelievable.
It was beautiful driving, and then going back in for that same spot every time. You just make an opening, hit that opening repeatedly until the thing dies.
Yeah,
It was
a cracking one. It was a cracking one. And what I like about this fight is that it really got to show like the core design of Monsoon that has been there since Tauron 1, but it shows the core design of the pivoting feature and the reversing weapon and all that.
The concept of Tauron.
Yes,
Yeah.
the concept.
Yes. It is the same concept that's been there in Tauron 1. And the fact that we got to use it all to its full functionality.
Yeah.
In what I think at this point is like the biggest fight we've ever had. Is
100%.
fantastic. Yeah, and it was a cracking fight. Yeah.
I will say in the time that we're talking about this, I'm simul watching the Cobalt Minotaur fight and the Cobalt Monsoon fight. It's eerie how when you're watching this Cobalt fight, you see the fight really start to turn when Cobalt loses these front forks. They need to figure out a way to keep them on the robot.
Speaking of the
because
devil,
as soon as they lose them,
Hey, there's one.
oh yeah, that's
Props.
a souvenir for you. But as soon as they're gone, it's just pick of the litter.
Yeah.
The weapon's too far back, too high up, and you just win the reach game every time you meet. And it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, and
even though the long forks are still there, those little ones like the one you have right there, as soon as they're gone, you have a catch point.
Yeah, and I think that it's not just forks that won us the match. I think it's the unique pivoting.
Every time they went under you, it just the pod just kind of flipped out the way.
Is it in this fight where you're facing the wrong way and then you flip it and the whole bot flips back over and you're running back toward Cobalt as if nothing changed?
So it due to the startup power in the weapon, if I'm upside down and accelerating in the right direction, I am able to flip the robot over. But it's very hard to do. It's part luck, but also part.
I mean, you made it look seamlessly and beautifully.
It was all
elegant.
intentional, right? All intentional.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. But I honestly think that the pivoting floppiness of the robot is something that we might start to see more in a world of like meta forks and ground scraping robots, because everyone's building their robots to be as hard and rigid as possible, like Cobalt. But it does mean that when you hit them, you really hit them, and all of that energy from our spinner just goes into their entire robot. And I think we're going to see more robots that can just absorb the hits and can deflect hits. So robots like Monsoon, but also robots like Huge that are made of plastic. Shatter that has ablative armor. I think there's more development, I think, that can be done in those kinds of robots instead of just going hard.
Make it harder, make it harder, make it harder.
Yeah. I don't think going harder all the time is the way to do it.
Yeah. All that force has to go somewhere, and it's going to go through your machine.
Rather go to theirs. Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
One of the things Dave said after this fight is that it was like trying to hit a bar of soap. He just couldn't do it. So yeah, it was great to see it working in that fight. So yeah, I'm very happy.
Before we move on,
as are we for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we move on to like kind of the end of Cobalt's season, one of my favorite things about this whole fight was the post-fight interview with you guys. First of all, I enjoyed Tom giving it everything to the crowd, like giving them the the
adrenaline.
It was so good. And then my favorite thing is you're all in shots of the interview at the end, and it's kind of rare that you get that. Like normally it's just the captain or maybe the driver and the captain, that kind of thing. No, it was all six of you, and you were all there, and it was a lovely kind of.
It was the sort of thing that you'd see a caption underneath just saying "family."
Yeah, exactly. And it is honestly so lovely to see. You could see Tim almost crying in the background. He's a big softie, really, and it's great to see. It was honestly great to see.
We had the absolute best time in that fight, and just being at BattleBots, it's funny. I still don't think of myself all the time as like a competitor, because to me, I'm just like a big fan of it all. I just like to be there. So actually getting to do it is a bonus, but I'd like to be there regardless. So
it's just hanging out with your friends, really. That's the main thing I got from Vegas.
It is, and I think I'm quite competitive, but I also think that our team is quite a like heart on our sleeves kind of team. Like we like to we don't like to be something that we're not. We don't like to play up and be all big to the camera. I don't know. Like it's
You are who you say you are.
what you see is what you get, and I just like to be there with the people closest to me. So
yeah, I think Jevons said it in a previous podcast where it's like, I think it was the first one we did for the season where it's like it was like going to meet old friends. It was like a family reunion every time you go to one of these big events, because it's you're all kind of stuck in the same hobby. We all interact with each other. It's just that a big reunion in a very flashy place. Just it just fits the sport so well. And I don't know, it's just nice to go and hang out with people. Who'd have known? I said it last week too. Like who'd have known you could make friends? Smashing metal together.
That's it. Yeah, that's I've met pretty much all of my closest friends now at robot events. It's a very special hobby to me, and a big part of the reason that I like to do all of the events, even the smaller ones, is just to see my friends and just hang out. It's just a good laugh.
And that's why the pub event's better than BattleBots.
Certainly less of an investment. I do want to talk about Cobalt quickly. Their season ends here. I said they were my pick to win at the start of the season. There's still a world in which that probably happened. They did get a hold of you, and they did do unbelievable damage because it is just an incredible machine. But just wasn't to be for them. They just got caught out by a sneaky Tom Brewster. How could you?
They do, however, finish the season on 3-2, which is a pretty good record. To be fair, it's a winning record. So, this machine continues to be powerful, and I think it's telling that John Maladnik has sort of moved over from Gigabyte to Cobalt because he sees where the wind is moving.
Yes,
it's moving vertically.
It is.
Yeah, it is. I think Cobalt certainly has a lot more victories left in it. But you know what? I think at the end of the day, you can't just have a robot with pure power, and I think it's got a very good weapon. That's
not in doubt, is it really?
Not in doubt at all. But I think they just need to, think about what happens if you get flipped. Does the weapon have to talk to self right? What happens if you're fighting another forky robot like a Monsoon? There's other ways to improve it other than just putting more juice into the weapon. So.
Absolutely.
I will say, I did a funny Excel thing that I just shared internally. If we do this the way the rankings go out, you guys have like the second hardest track to the nut just based on rankings. We're not worried about metas or stuff like that. If you just look at seedings, you have a really tough run to the nut. Like worst case scenario for you is it's Cobalt, then SawBlaze, then what else is there? Minotaur, Hydra, Riptide. That's your hardest run. If
No
all
pressure,
the high
right?
seeds win.
Easy, mate. No problem.
Just
no problem at
crazy.
all.
I like a challenge, so let's be having it.
Well, you mentioned Minotaur. Let's talk about the next fight, which is Fusion and Minotaur. For a second,
they were worried.
Well, for that first 5 seconds, it was all Fusion, and then Fusion did what Fusion does and caught fire.
Yeah, Fusion remembered it was Fusion, and then realized, fire.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I've got to say, this year's Minotaur is. I'm starting to ask questions about it because obviously they had the fight against Cobalt in which Cobalt dominated for the first 2.5 minutes. You got this where Fusion dominates the opening interactions. This is not the one hit killer it has been prior.
I do wonder if that's purely the fact that the level of their opponents is also very high. Like if we look at who they fought this year, they fought Tantrum, who was last year's champion. They fought Free Shipping. You could argue that's their easy fight, but they fought each other for years, and Free Shipping's very good.
Not an easy fight.
And their other two are Cobalt, Witch Doctor, and now Fusion. It's not a nice run at all.
No.
And the quality, the standard of their opponent is also very high, so it's not going to knock most of those out anyway. So I do wonder if that's something to do with it.
But it did though.
Or did
Fusion kill itself with all the?
I do wonder. Well, there was that kind of second hit where Minotaur's upside down, runs at it, and kind of the weapon belt flies off, and I do wonder if it just crumpled in on itself a little bit.
Reese has talked about that before.
Yeah.
where like the frame goes in a little bit and maybe it touches some wires together that aren't supposed to be,
There's
maybe
such
compresses a
tight-
battery pack.
Like tolerances in there.
I
Yeah.
imagine we'll get some sort of answers in the Waiachi stream.
Yeah.
Those are wild, aren't they?
Which have been just lovely chaos.
Um,
I'm all here
Don't
for
talk
it.
about the Fusion merch store.
Gun check.
Oh, gun check.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So silly.
I can't buy guns. I live in the UK.
We
Got a Nerf
said
gun.
we said we just grabbed the Nerf gun.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right, there's that one, and then there's,
Oh, jeez! All right, Jevon. Watch out!
And there's the
Bloody
skinny
hell.
little guy over there.
just
And
check
anyway.
that. Nothing,
Oh.
nothing there.
Uh-huh.
Nothing. All gone.
That's what teaching does for you. That's just...
The other thing I want to talk about is Reese Ewart continues to be the funniest person in BattleBots,
Oh my
doesn't he? And not only in this section, like in the interview where
In memoriam.
in memoriam at the end, where it's just son of a bitch. He's just
I love Reese.
he's so dry. God bless him. Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
the fight was over so quickly. There's not much to talk about.
It really was. It really was. One shot and it was done. Really.
Fusion did its fireworks display, and that was it.
That was bad.
Went out in a blaze of fusion.
Yeah.
You know, I really think there is a world in which Fusion could have beaten Minotaur because
Oh yeah.
vertical spinners generally, you don't need that big of a weapon to send your opponent flying.
Nope.
And remember, last year Fusion beat Cobalt, so
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
you know.
It has the potential. But we say this every time with Fusion. It has the potential to be a really horrible opponent for everyone because if you run forks, it's just going to use the horizontal. If you use a wedge, it's just going to use the vertical. It's so hard to plan for, but
See, we said if we ever went up against a cluster bot
Or
could-
Fusion, yeah.
or like Fusion,
Yeah.
see, we have like the snoot wedge,
yes.
Hmm.
and we can be set up either way. So we could go into a fight with the snoot on one end and
And then
forks
just-
on the other.
and then
flip.
And then just
Very
tip it
good.
upside down or not at the start. Like,
Yeah,
Mhm.
depending
I
on...
have to ask,
Genius.
was that directly inspired by Snappy?
You know, it was actually inspired by Kraken.
Okay, fair.
Ah.
That's fair.
It's actually Kraken. I love
Okay.
but it was definitely Kraken. It was the idea of having a long, narrow wedge.
Mm.
Mhm.
It just turned into a bit of a wider wedge. I think the first version of the snoot was very much like the front of Kraken, like a long, thin wedge that you can feed into like drums and things that don't have feeder forks.
Mhm.
That was the
fair.
idea.
Yeah, fair. Understandable.
It's apologies to Craig Croucher instead of Danby this time.
Yeah.
Oh,
Craig.
we love you, Craig.
We love Craig.
Every Craig. Fusion season ends at 1-4, but again, this has been their best season by a wide margin.
Yes.
And if
Yeah,
you look at the caliber
100%.
of opponents that they've had as well, like, you know, that fight with Emulsifier was incredible. The fight with Witch Doctor was unbelievable as well. You know, they lost a huge Rotator and Minotaur along the way as well. You know, it's top tier opponents for a robot, which, you know, is knocking on the door. If they can get that fire under control, Fusion will probably run the whole competition, but we'll see.
Mhm.
Next fight is, well, the other Waiachi robot, Death Roll and Hydra.
We'll
Did it-
show you how to scrape the skin.
Did it touch the thing? It was they
It
claimed
was
it did.
nearly there.
Very close.
I believe it touched a light.
Was it July? Okay.
Yeah, I think it just scraped a light. There is a photo of it going around. I think they've just
Yeah,
put it up, and it's up there. I mean, certainly it goes within the light rig,
Mhm.
which is almost as high as you can get in that box, basically. So, yeah.
Was
Well,
this the perfect opponent for Hydra? A
Yeah.
bot with no fork game, you know, just I would
It's
Would
so
be playing
small and
sailing.
compact as well. Like
yeah.
all of the weight is there.
in the middle.
It's just like
it's so
if
dense.
you send that thing, it's going.
Yeah. As much as I love
Things
Death
in
Rolls
Predator-
spinning like a quarter in the air.
Death Roll went that high, and then when they came down, it carried on working.
for
Yeah.
the whole fight. It was
Die.
unbelievable. It's just
Yeah.
what an incredible fight that was. You know, the fact, you know, I think the Hydra page did actually highlight the fact that every time Death Roll bounced to the floor, it almost every time landed weapon first, and the weapon kept running and kept running and kept running until eventually, they buried it into Hydra's face.
Oh my god,
But-
what a hit!
That was
What a hit.
a very graphic shot.
Very
wasn't it?
juicy.
Yeah.
Where like Death Roll just kind of leans forward as well, like endos on the front. It was incredible. Really, really cool.
But that was the fear for Hydra is exposing those sides. If Jake doesn't keep the bot pointed directly as his opponent, there's very juicy 3 other sides of the robot that are just asking to get pierced by that disc.
Not even just that. When Death Roll was kind of tumbling about as it's wont to do, it kind of caught one of these drive chain protector pods at the back as well, and it flew off.
Yeah.
And another hit like that, and it could have been a different story, you know.
Spinning in circles.
I think Hydra is only armored with 3mm titanium. Is that correct, or something like that?
That would make sense for like the amount of weight they've had to put in for everything else in there.
Yeah, I leave this to the Waiachi stream.
But no, I think I agree that this was quite a good matchup for Hydra.
Yes,
Death Roll, you know, fair play to Death Roll. I love that they're not playing the ground game, but at some point, I think you kind of have to. It's the same thing with Beta that I'm sure we'll get to, but
it is a shame. I suppose they do have, similar to kind of Uppercut and others, you know, they have the weapon right at the front, and it's the first thing you're going to touch, like a Witch Doctor as well, I suppose. But I suppose they have to do something to kind of maybe mitigate that. And considering the fact that Death Roll came out of a crate from 4 years ago, hasn't been touched, and has come back and is still fairly good, is a testament to how good it was, you know, 4 years ago, really. You know, massive credit to that team, and you know, it's great to see the Australians back. But Hydra's again, I know I've said it already, but like, it's just quietly going about its business, just winning fights fairly easily. It's not really breaking a sweat yet, which is quite ominous for the rest of the field, I think.
I mean, they've got a rematch next, I believe, which I'm sure we'll get onto in a bit.
Yeah,
could prove interesting.
Absolutely. And after the unstick, it's kind of Hydramania for Death Roll. You know, it's
okay. So I have a little bit of a bone to pick with the decision-making process of this fight. Okay. So we were told in between seasons that aggression was going to be more favored to the robot driving around and trying to get to the other robot, right? Hydra, when it loses its wheel, because I think it loses its front left, looking at it like this wheel.
Yep.
Hydra goes back to tower defense and becomes a turret again. Whereas Death Roll is the one chasing around. Okay, it hasn't got the weapon, but
and it's losing the exchanges every time it hits the flipper. So
I would imagine that because Hydra was being the aggressor in the first half as well.
It was enough to shake it, I think.
Yeah.
They've done enough in that first half before the unstick.
Yeah. Also on the unstick, it's interesting that it was like, oh yeah, it's so awesome they managed to get it apart. Yeah, I bet it was 10 minutes later.
Yeah,
that's how long it took.
Editing, you know, and Death Roll's weapon is down, you know, after that, you know, so that but they still kept trying.
The ways in which they tried to free Death Roll were shove a what's it called? Crowbar, that's the word. Yeah. Shove a crowbar in the top of where the spinner hit, in the bottom of where the spinner hit, in the side of where the spinner hit. None of that worked. Pick up Death Roll, start just trying to twist that thing out. But obviously it's moving on the spinner.
Right.
Then start wiggling both robots until something happens. And then they go back to this one. And it's just like...
Eventually.
It's like the thing where you hold your headphones at one at each side, and if you just go like this a bunch, eventually it'll untangle. You know?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
If you introduce enough randomness into the system,
Steve,
something will happen.
It's 2023. Get some wireless headphones.
Yeah,
I do have some. Over there. They're the same model as this, but they're Bluetooth.
Excellent. Very good.
It's all good. I just use it for the Switch. I don't use it for my PC.
All right.
It's an interesting one, this, because in previous seasons, like with previous rules, Hydra might have been counted out because they weren't mobile enough.
Yeah,
definitely.
Last year, Death Roll wins this fight.
Walking.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's certainly an interesting one, considering, you know, as you said, last season it may not have gone the same way it has, but that's the evolution of BattleBots, I suppose.
Yeah.
Moving on, we have.
Oh,
You just leave it, right? You just leave it. All you do is leave it.
You leave it and you grab it.
I'm
is what you
sick
do.
I forgot this fight was in this episode. Sick.
To quote Martin Brundle from the 2012 Chinese Grand Prix when Michael Schumacher retired, "I've not been this disappointed since Shrek 2."
Hey, you leave Shrek 2 alone. It's a great film.
We watched it last week.
We did watch it last week. Quantum. Grant and James. Oh my god! It was like a golden ticket. It, like, pick your spot. Do you want a frog leg? Sure. A bit of.
I think they were about to, and then Ribbot got freed, but they were definitely helping.
They dithered
him get out.
so much. Oh,
no, they helped him get out. They were being sportsmanlike, and then
you think
the
Ribbot wasn't?
No, I know. I think it was in their post-fight interview where they say that they helped get them out, basically. Right. And yeah,
it's extremely admirable, but at this
very
stage,
nice sportsmanship, and
at this stage
lots
of the competition,
points,
it's the wrong time for it, lads.
It's the wrong
bot eat bot, man. You got to just get in there and.
They did their post where apparently they were talking to Ian Lewis like pre-fight. I'm sure Ian Lewis would have just left them there.
No, because some of us are gentlemen, some of us.
Oh yeah, some of us. Oh, of course, the gentleman's agreement. Yes,
very good.
Excellent. To be fair, though, Ian Lewis with Razor, his tactics were always to keep going in for another bite and keep hold, and that's what Quantum did here.
It's such a. I mean, obviously, Tom and Sarah. Obviously, I know you guys have spent a lot of time with the Coopers in the build-up to this season. It must have been kind of frustrating for you guys seeing, people who you've gotten close with to see them lose in this way to Ribbot.
Yeah, it is pretty gutting. A fellow Brit team going out in such a close way, and I think there's a fine line between going in for an extra hit for no reason and going in to try and win, and it's hard to know sometimes when your opponent is actually stuck and if you should free them or not, and it's a real tough one because they could totally have had it and they should have had it. But they were far too British about it, I think. So.
Yeah.
But they weren't in all the fights leading up to this.
I know
they would drive bots across the box, and this was such a timid display. And we've talked to the Coopers, and I love them, but this was really, really sad to see because Quantum had such a good year, 4-0. When's that ever going to happen again? You're gifted a season. You're gifted a high seed. I wouldn't say they were gifted they weren't gifted an easy opponent in Ribbot. that was the unfortunate thing.
No, we've been talking at length about the Ribbot trap this season, where they do three losses, and you're like, wow, this robot's a write-off, and then all of a sudden it's woken up, and you're like, oh no, my bracket.
Yeah,
it's fully following in the footsteps of Hydra last year, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
it's very similar. I do want to kind of talk a bit about the ending of the fight where Quantum's upside down and the head gets broken at the I suppose the spine.
Oh yeah,
it was proper visceral. And then David, bless him, was like, "I'm going to hit you if you keep moving. Please stop moving." He's like, he's being very clear that he doesn't.
We don't want another Riptide Shredder hitter, please.
Well, not even that, because Quantum, as we've discussed so many times, it's not just a fighting robot. It's not just an engineering project. It is a work of art, and Ribbot has the capability to just go straight through it, and you can tell David's like, I don't want to touch you. Please stop moving. You're dead. Just leave it, please.
Yep.
Because movement is movement. So.
It is this season, and they'd have to go in there, and I don't think they wanted to. So credit to the Ribbot team for really telling the Quantum guys, look, stop. We've won the fight. It's over.
Yeah,
just please stop.
You're
moving.
not coming back from.
We've lost David.
Excellent. David is frozen. There he is.
He's
back. I'm still here.
Thought there was another power cut.
You know what? I think the Coopers especially really deserve a huge amount of credit and praise for what they've done, because they've come to a modern BattleBots competition with something that's not a spinner and have basically just dominated. And I think that's really admirable, and to prove that Crushers can still win fights as well in an era post Razor is really fantastic.
I agree.
Considering the last time we saw Razor, it wasn't very long.
It
was very.
This has been beautiful
they lost to a silver pole on wheels. That was terrible.
It really did. I sincerely hope we see Quantum again next season. I'm sure we will do. They did put a Facebook post earlier today saying that they've got one more exhibition fight in them, which means I don't think we're going to see him in Champions either, which is a little bit of a shame.
No, well, they only got the one. It's and
This is
Champions
the issue.
is a lot.
Yeah,
please
this is the issue.
make
It's a lot
more
more
than
fights.
one next
Yeah.
year.
I've also seen a post saying that they've been machining a new head, so they're already preparing for whatever may come next, which is exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they've also been
I
machining.
would think they'd be invited back again.
They've also been machining giant fingers for Dick and Dom.
They have. Oh, they have. Yeah.
Dick and
Oh,
Dom.
hilarious.
Dick and Dom is a children's show, by the way, in the UK. It had about 20 years. It was the 20-year anniversary, and we went to that. And then just whilst we were there, so myself, my wife, Tom and Sarah went to Dick and Dom live. It was incredible. And then we went to the fucking lobby, and then we just see the Coopers there. It's like, oh, what are you doing here?
Hey, wait a minute.
It was so good. It was so good. Yeah, all that creamy muck.
There was so much cream at much.
There's so much.
and a huge amount of bogeys. So
There was so much bogeys. Oh my goodness.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
Everyone who's listening, is on.
Anyone in the US is going to have no
Americans.
context for this, right?
I was enjoying the bogeys,
so many confused Americans right now.
Yeah.
That's
If you're born between like the early 90s and like sort of the early 2000s, you're going to understand everything if you're from the UK. If you're not, then yeah.
Look up on YouTube. It'll be there.
It's
There you
so
go.
it's so strange.
As long as it's not region blocked. Anyway,
Moving on, we have Malice and Switchback.
Yeah. Switchback went in with the weapon up.
That was a bit of a surprise. I think what they were trying to do was try and hit this pulley here.
David knows exactly what they were trying to do because we had this conversation in the pub the
With
night
Greg,
before.
yeah.
David.
It was all about trying to take out the belt straight away because like we know Malice's weapon reliability hasn't been the best in the past.
No.
It's like one hit on that would take it out, and then you just play with your food from there. But it didn't quite work out. It was working fine for about the first 30 seconds, and then oh dear.
It's a fair tactic, but if I were them, I would have just gone in with the drum down with the wedge and just gone in weapon to weapon, because Malice's the drumstick, the bar spinner variant, it doesn't ever seem to hit that hard. So I think they would have fared a pretty good chance if they'd just gone in weapon to weapon.
Absolutely. I think, the other thing I have to kind of consider as well is, Malice had a bit of assistance, didn't they?
Yeah.
A little
Just
bit
a
of
bit.
assistance from a Mr. Ray Billings who decided he couldn't stay away from BattleBots for a whole year and recover, and thought, I'm going to help out the Malice team. It was lovely to see him. It was really lovely to see him.
So strange to
arena
see him in
weapons
different
operator.
garb.
Yeah.
He was on the hammer. It was great.
But where is Tombstone, Sam? Where is Tombstone?
Where is Tombstone? Could be anywhere. Who knows? Switchback did lose its chain drives, didn't it? At some point, the Malice got around the back, and what are you looking at, Jevon?
Just your dog Meg was giving us a very ominous look.
The thing is, she's so blind she can't actually see.
Oh, bless her.
She's just looking. She's looking blankly at me. Anyway,
Sweet little baby.
yeah. Switchback, a good season. They went 3-1 in the regular season, and obviously one loss here to Malice. A marked improvement in terms of competitive quality. Obviously, my thoughts on the two machines.
And how it looks and how it operates and everything.
Yeah,
is just
all right.
better.
I've come round to Switchback. I have come round to it, but
No, you haven't.
But I have. I have. But it's
Okay.
it's such a shame that it kind of ended this way, because I think this was their fight to win. The geometry of the two robots it did suit them, and
They had the potential, certainly.
What I
but
will say
didn't
is that
get on it.
I think Malice is one of those robots that people are sleeping on a lot. Like it didn't perform too well in its pre-season. It had a couple of lucky wins, but ultimately the thing still hits hard, and it's one of those sort of design upset robots in which it's horizontal but it's got wedgelets. So what do you do? And yeah, it's flying nicely under the radar to the point where it's just made a top 16, and could, it's got a tough match ahead of it.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
It's got more surprises in it, I'm sure. I'm sure that fight won't be too scary, hopefully. But we'll see.
It is a tough robot, but I've never been that blown away by its weapon power. I watching that fight back, every time it hits Switchback, the weapon just stops pretty much dead. I don't know. I think there's some room for improvement on the weapon power, but it's definitely built like a tank. So
yeah.
So if you're listening, Greg, Tom wants this is the first fight next year,
Absolutely.
year, whenever.
Malice versus Monsoon confirmed for BattleBots World Championship VIII. Malice is going through to fight Minotaur. We didn't actually mention Ribbot's going through for a rematch with Black Dragon as well, which is very exciting to see.
Yeah.
Which there was more fire.
There was more fire.
All
So
of the fire.
we'll see if history repeats itself there. Malice, I think it's a big ask to beat Minotaur, but I mean, they've got Ray on the team. I think they did allude to the fact that Tombstone beat Minotaur a few years ago. Maybe he can give them some advice as to how to beat them because
They just got to ruin the floor. That's the solution.
easy.
Yeah.
Just break the floor. It's a lot harder than it used to be to do that, but it's possible.
Sneak RIPperoni back in, have it bounce on the floor enough times, and then that'll solve it.
There are some parts of the arena that are looking hella lumpy now. So
Yeah, definitely.
So I know I mentioned I wasn't that disappointed in Shrek 2 for Quantum versus Ribbot. I've not been this disappointed since Quantum versus Ribbot for Whiplash versus Beta. John, I called it. I said it word for word. I hate it.
Bring out the boat.
Okay,
Bring out
so-
the hammer.
So I understand what he's going for, and he has
I
said,
don't.
well, he did a whole Facebook post about using the
Sure.
using the ugly armor, but
He could say whatever he wants. He's wrong.
Oh!
Wow.
This
it is.
a tactical
Honestly-
failure. I'm sorry.
Albert
think-
Einstein says that doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results every time is the fully definition of insanity. And now this is the fourth time we've seen this boat-like armor go on to Beta, and the fourth time that it is lost because it is not
The
a good
USS
strategy.
Beta does not work. We know this.
Maybe on the 5th time it'll work. You never
No,
know. Maybe.
Have it upside down, so at least there's
That's
a
the thing.
flat edge on the
That's
floor.
the thing. Like, the thing is, okay, Whiplash came on into this without these two pods at the side here. It was just the weapon and the fork. Okay, they put all their weight into top armor to withstand from the hammer. Understandable, right? Whiplash just drove at them and got under because the fork was on the weapon. It's just oh my god! It
I think
boggles
John
my
forgot
mind.
that Whiplash is a lifter first.
You might as well just paint lift here for free.
Well, sadly, I actually found out yesterday what killed Beta. Do you know what it was?
Go for it.
It was a
We know
vest
it was
cable, wasn't it?
it was a Beck, wasn't it?
No. From what my information says, it was the driving removable link came out.
Oh, John!
No.
Jonathan Reed.
So it's
This
not
is
a
not
good look for
helping the links
UK
we switched
robots.
to.
Honestly, that's my information. Says that it was the removable link came out of Beta, and that's why the weapon's still firing, but there's just no drive.
That makes sense for how it shut down.
What I will say though
That's
is
like the first lesson I learned doing robot combat.
Literally, it was your first fight. It lasted 6 seconds.
Tom,
Tom 6 second Brewster, they called him.
well,
for...
hang on a minute. Hold up.
We won't take this blasphemy online.
Honestly,
this does mean, however, right? So Beta is now out, Quantum is now
Yeah.
out, Cobalt is now out, and that leaves only one British team standing.
You
Could
know,
it mean that they're the best?
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tom Brewster and Monsoon UK champions confirmed.
yeah,
Um,
but it's almost like I feel like I telegraphed it, where it's like there
we
are
all said
fights
it.
that are
We all said it. And when
there
we
are
sp-
fights that are won and lost in the pits, and
Yeah.
this was lost in the pits.
When we spoke to Pete
the
2
link
weeks
came
ago,
out, but
when we
the
spoke
boat
to Pete
armor.
2 weeks ago, he said, "I'll be amazed if he uses the boat armor."
Yeah, man.
And here it is.
Yeah.
And-
Oh, you know what? I think it's easy to dismiss the boat armor
Of course.
because when you look at it, it looks a bit ridiculous. But if you watch some of those exchanges with Whiplash's spinner, they do indeed deflect the shots pretty well.
Yeah.
And when you think about it, look at the front of Beta's boat armor. Look at the front of Monsoon's armor.
Yeah.
They're pretty similar.
Mhm.
I would say that us and John have had similar, a similar thought process when coming to that armor shape because it's designed to give vertical spinners very little to get a purchase on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think the armor concept does work, but
I think
If he
Flash
just
is a
had some
lifter,
ground
though, man.
game
That's the
as well, though.
problem. It's not a
Well,
vert
yeah, as well.
primarily.
I think the issue is I think it would work really well against a drum like a Copperhead or a
Yes.
Minotaur. I
Oh
think
yeah.
Yeah.
it would be
definitely.
much better. But like
Or
as you
Black
say,
Dragon.
the issue is that
Well, no, not Black Dragon.
No.
Well, those.
Oh yeah, they got forks and things.
I say any robot with forks in front of their vert, which most do. Not
Most
everyone is vert first like a witch doctor or whatever. Those that use forks will just drive underneath it, and then all the sensitive bits are underneath, and it's such a shame.
Like Death Roll, I think fair play. They don't like to play the fork game.
No, and
but when literally everyone is, I think the writing's on the wall, and you do
have to follow it.
Something you have to.
I go back to in Broncos' final season, or maybe it was leading up to it, where they used those quangers on the side to kind of deflect shots underneath the bot as opposed to them hitting the wheels.
Yeah,
it kind of worked, but it also makes it the fact that like the other bot can just control you around the arena as long as they're getting to your sides. It's you're giving them an access point, but you're also protecting your robot. But there's a give and take there. But
I was never on the podcast when the quangers were discussed. They should have been the other way up. So it should have been downwards instead of upwards.
They're like, okay.
Yeah, it's a very it's just a anyway. It was an experiment. It was an experiment just like this is. It just hasn't worked out in theory. But
I do think that this setup of beta we're looking at the minute, the normal armor setup would have been a better call against Whiplash. They can get that a lot lower. So. I mean, we saw them fighting Shatter, and Shatter was just riding up on top of them more often than not. And Shatter is a forky robot.
I do think with John's logic, I believe, was because if he used the wedge and got underneath Whiplash anyway, like they have wheels, they will just drive away. And the wheels would touch the floor because of the way that the geometry of Whiplash is. It is a difficult matchup either way for Beta. I think it was a really big ask for them to beat them. But
what about the flat hammer choice too, instead of going with the pill?
We know why he's gone.
I feel like we're picking Beta apart here. I kind of feel bad, but
he's had a great season. He's had a great season.
He's finishing on a winning record still.
But
I like the flat hammer because
he'll swing it regardless.
Yeah, well. Yeah. It's the sort of hammer that Jason is used to using, and it does cause damage still, but the pill hammer causes more damage, and it's he won't use it against anything that spins.
That's most of BattleBots, so we'll never see it again.
I think when he saw his matchup was Whiplash, I think he saw the spinner on Whiplash and just thought, that is the scary thing in this fight. It's the spinner. I need to put on my vertical spinner armor. But with Whiplash, the weapon is Jason and the lifter. So
Anyway, Whiplash moves on.
Whiplash moves on. Beta, a great return. This
sob party.
It's it's because Beta has been one of my favorite robots to watch this year, and
it's come back in a good way.
Definitely,
it's certainly made up for 2020.
We want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. This is what we wish we had in 2020, and it's proven its worth. 100%. The last fight of the episode has direct consequences for our guests this week, because it is Blip versus SawBlaze, and the winner of this fight was going to fight Monsoon. SawBlaze is bloody good at it. It's really
it is very good.
We saw the post at the start of the season where SawBlaze said we're just tearing through tires.
Yeah,
there was a further post before that episode. Yeah, and it's
fixed now,
sorted now.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Sorry, go on.
They were remolding, like they had the stuff that because they made their own wheels.
Yep.
They were redoing them in the pits
all the time. In the pits. I remember seeing them hunched over wheel molds and frantically working on wheels,
trying to figure out what to do for next season, right?
But it's a welcome back to the party for SawBlaze. If this is the SawBlaze we're going to see in the next fight, I wish you guys the best of luck. This was tough, because it's exactly what we said in the lead up in the bracket. It's the fact that Blip is just the right size to go into that bucket at the front. It's perfectly shaped to be scooped up and driven around.
For the first few exchanges, Blip was getting underneath, but as soon as those it hasn't got the piano key set up on it. It's got the two long forks similar to Tantrum. As soon as those either came off or were bent underneath the robot, there was only going to be one winner.
I can also see David is itching to say his thing about Blip.
Go on,
yeah. Well,
which bit was about Blip? Apart from sad.
Is it the little
what
vape
happened?
It does? Is
what
it the
happened?
vape it does? Tell us about the vape.
So, there was a very early hit that took out a solenoid on Blip, and that meant no flip. So once again, in a year where people have been wondering where the flips have gone on Blip, we have no flip. So it's just Aaron doing his best to try and drive a wedge against a big scary vert that hits from the top, and just it's never going to end well. I mean, they made special forks for this fight the day before this fight was recorded, but it just didn't quite work out this time, and JMO had his number.
I did really appreciate their armor config in this fight. Blip had the sort of selective panels of, it looked like Tegris.
Blip doing his best Batman cosplay.
Yeah, the Zorro look, yes.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it worked really well. It protected their armor relatively well, other than the hit on the solenoid.
I have to ask Tom and Sarah, was this fight before or after yours, and were you paying very close attention to it?
I think it was before.
It was after.
Was it after?
It was the last one of the round of 32 that was recorded, because it was in the same session. Because I remember Monsoon and Cobalt was just after Tantrum.
Monsoon
Endgame.
Cobalt was the second fight of session 13. Blip SawBlaze, as David said, was the last.
Yeah.
In the little book.
Yeah, no, we it was after us, and we did watch it very carefully, of course, because we knew that we were going to be fighting the winner of this, and good fight. But
I have a question.
Oh,
in a world where Blip wins, what do you do about Blip? What config do you go? What?
I mean, probably our long forks in a bar. Yeah, probably.
You've wanted a flipper since day one.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Just go.
There's so many in the UK.
Just go to Extreme Robots, but none of them want to fight you, right?
But Blip is a fantastic robot, but like a lot of other robots that have gotten smaller and smaller over the years, it only makes it easier for a robot like SawBlaze to pick them up.
Mm-hmm.
They're the perfect shape to fit on SawBlaze.
Yeah.
And I don't know what Blip could have done in this case. I mean, are they going to try and outfork SawBlaze? Because if so, they're going to need something like longer than the length of their entire robot. So
I guess just try and outdrive. Like it's the Tantrum fight. Only difference is it's harder because you haven't got like a damaging weapon. You're trying to get flips to do the damage.
Yeah. I think if you're Blip, this is a very tough fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very tough.
So in this fight, we need a decider now. Aaron and JMO have split 1-1. There's got to be a decider. Yep.
Yeah, maybe. Blip season ending 2 and 3. It's such a shame because overall seems reasonable this year. I've had a rude awakening, I suppose, in the results department. I think 3 and 7 is their overall record, which is it's pretty brutal, but they'll be back. I'm sure they'll be back.
I think so.
However, for SawBlaze,
they get a rematch.
I don't know how that got in there. There you go. Sorry, can we just go back to this for 1 second? I know, please, because this
you mean the best interview ever?
It's incredible. Martin Mason
just
is a
the
treasure.
Continuation of the. It starts with the. I think he's compensating for something. Immediately, Chris and Kenny die laughing. And then the huge poon.
Yeah.
Well, it's got to be something similar to what Kraken used with their harpoon, to reach Huge's body.
It'll be an attachment for the arm that lifts.
And trying to pin it from there. I missed this at recording because
I did not. I'm very in the post.
Yeah, you're everywhere, Jeff.
You're
right
front,
in the
right, and
post
centre. I was outside getting a nice bear hug from Tom, saying, "Bloody hell, well done, lad." And Alex and Ginger from there.
Yes, I have appreciated these end kind of wrap up shows to have at the end of a show. It was cool to see Shatter in the previous one where you got to see all the damage and Adam talk through all his day, his crazy day, and then this one where we get the pizza robot all taken apart, and we get Chris almost pouring dry ice and water into RIPperoni.
So
it would have been terrible.
Oh my god! If he was so close.
He was tipping it.
The other thing as well, no. Anna Zolnikov is coming for Chris and Kenny's job, right? Like she has so much natural confidence when presenting. It's unbelievable. Yeah, fair play.
But anyway. These end interviews are also good.
It makes it very special. I feel like it makes the bracket just a little bit extra special. I think it really adds to it. Okay, enough of the huge poon. We'll save that for next week.
Yeah.
Monsoon's next fight is a rematch from
It is a remake.
2018.
Jamo was calling you out in his
He
post
was!
as well.
Yeah.
It's clear he never forgets.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Like an elephant.
I will. I think I'll say that up until the Cobalt fight, our fight in 2018 is my favorite Monsoon fight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think a rematch is always quite good fun. Both robots have come on a huge way. This is not the same SawBlaze from 2018, but it's not the same Monsoon from 2018. It's funny. The other day, I think on I was on YouTube and our 2018 fight was suggested to me, and I had to watch it, of course. And just watching it, it's like two aircraft carriers.
It is.
Yeah.
The pace of the show has changed so much in the past few years. It's
So quick.
amazing.
So quick now, all the robots, really.
Yeah. And this is SawBlaze pre Hammersaw. So
Yeah.
It was. That's correct. Yeah. And we're now fighting a much faster, much more fearsome SawBlaze with a far more destructive weapon now, I think. But again, a much faster Monsoon with a bigger weapon and more experience behind the team. And we were definitely very up for this fight.
We had a question from Shadowscope FSM on YouTube, and they said, what was your reaction realizing that, you have to fight SawBlaze again, but then also the potential fight after that is Minotaur if they beat Malice.
It's just 2018.
Just like
again.
2018.
Yeah.
We kind of having that all kind of cogging, going on at the same time.
Yeah, we did realize that at the time. Yeah, it was funny that. Literally the exact same route that we had in 2018. So in my head, it was just right. We're doing 2018 again. It was the glory year. Can we do it right this time? Can we go further? Let's have a go. I was very, very excited for this one, and I'm sure Jameson is as well. Great fight.
I think he's gonna have a similar problem as he did with the 2018 fight. Is when does he bring the arm over? Because it's anytime you fight something that's got a scary spinny bit on the front, it's especially with something like a SawBlaze or a Scorpios or any bot that has or even a Shatter or something like that, something that has an overhead weapon. You gotta pick your shots, because you can't just throw it over and pray, because that might be the last time you have a chance to do it. So I think he'll do his thing. Well, we'll see if this is right. Think he'll do his thing where he'll try to drive you into the walls, and then once he's got you there, he'll do the thing he does with SawBlaze and Megatron, and hopefully bring it over. But I also expect you to get some hits too. So it's gonna be something else.
Yeah, no, it's no spoilers, but it is a cracking fight. But he's definitely gotten very good at positioning his the enemy robot and dropping his arm on them. I think in past years he was more likely to drop it into spinners, because he did that with us a couple of times in 2018. So
well, he's also probably missing a wheel at the moment.
It's not the same SawBlaze anymore, but it's not the same Monsoon. So
no.
It's very exciting. I think it's one of the more exciting
interesting
fights.
to see. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Well, that does wrap up everything. Tom and Sarah, thank you very much for your time. We have one final question, which I think is kind of an interesting one as to longevity of the show, really. Kevin McD28 on Twitter asks, how did you approach your next matches in the bracket after winning this fight? And how are you doing with managing spares now that you're 5 fights deep?
Yeah. Was there any damage from the Cobalt fight? I think we probably should have brought that up when you were fighting them, because it looked like you took a few licks.
Yeah, it was just the front armor had a few dents, but our armor this year held up a lot better than any other year, just because we changed the design so that the main front part of our armor is folded rather than welded together. And so even when we got all of those hits from Black Dragon, they only actually went through the armor in one place. And then in a couple of other places, it was just a bit bent. So, yeah, I think our main losses at this point were some weapon motors. Obviously, the ones from the Black Dragon fight. And then kind of just we'd had a few issues with the bolts for the drive shearing.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think we'd had any Like we
Honestly,
weren't
nothing-
worried. We weren't worried about having enough.
Mm.
I think that's boiled down
There's
to
a cool
the fact that-
confidence
Just
here.
utmost
There's a-
confidence.
I was
Let's
gonna
go.
say, there is a cool confidence here. You know,
I
it
think
really
it
is.
boiled down to the fact that we'd had 3 years to be ready.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah.
There was a
Fair.
fair amount of paint damage, as I recall.
Oy, oy, oy.
We don't talk about Thomas the Tank Engine anymore, you know.
Yeah, apart from
Yeah.
the pain.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only thing we didn't have was paint because the paint we get over here, we buy it from Halfords, and
It's
Right.
that's for Americans, it's a British like car maintenance.
Yeah.
and for anyone interested, it's Ford Amparo Blue. That's
Yes.
the Monsoon.
That's like the
We actually did have a question about that as well. We had what shade
there
of
you
blue is
go.
it? There you go. So
yeah,
got that in the end.
Amparo blue.
But no, honestly, at this point, we were actually pretty good for spares because
Yeah.
we'd had 3 years, and this is the first time that we had brought
Two
two
robots.
complete ready to run Monsoons.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd never done that before. We'd always just run off
One chassis.
one chassis and a big
Yeah.
sledgehammer to bend it back into shape.
Did you take apart the other Monsoon to put into a fight? Did you get second Monsoon ready and just interchange between them all?
Yeah, it was always a case of one on, one off. So one would be fighting, the other one would be taking apart and fixing.
Yeah, so as soon as we got our fight cards, we got one ready to fight Black Dragon. We
Yeah.
got the other ready to fight Horizon, and then as soon as Black Dragon was over, that robot was got ready for Whiplash.
Yeah.
The Horizon robot was got ready for Death Roll.
Okay. Interesting.
And then
There you go.
going into the tournament with Cobalt, we're like, which one's got all the best bits?
Which one's the least buggered up?
And that's it.
Yeah, because we did have a bit of like, so because of the way the pods work, being mounted either side of the weapon bulkhead, they have to be like completely like finely ground
They
down.
have to be very straight and like
very
flat.
straight and flat.
Yeah.
But like we'd have some like warp in the bulkhead.
There was some grinding involved.
So we had to we had to do some like fettling to get it all to fit together probably.
Yeah.
At least there wasn't a beheading this year, so that's been fine.
No, it stayed intact.
That's been good so
Yeah.
far. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Excellent.
Indeed, it goes like this normally on the beheading.
Very good.
Like,
Very good. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you back on the podcast for the first time in I think 4 years.
Oh my god.
I know, it's crazy. It's been a long time.
Thank you so much for having us. Anytime you want us back, we're just down the road. So
I was going to say, I mean, we were talking about potentially doing a Eurovision night tonight, but there's still time. Yeah, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully we'll see Monsoon progress a little bit further. You never know.
Yeah, we'll
Also get
we'll
the
see
shirts.
see you on at the end of the season when you eventually win it. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
it's coming home.
It is coming
home.
home.
coming home.
With all that said, though, I haven't said my little 64.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy.
I've been ruined by that last comment.
I may have been David of Smeg. We'll see. I'm still finding paint.
I've been Tom.
I'm Sarah.
Yeah.
And the three of us will see you next week for the round of 16.
And another huge poon.
Another huge
Hey.
poon. We're actually going to see the huge poon.
I think
next
one's
week.
enough.
Huge poons in every fight.
Just huge spoons all the way down.
Yeah.
We'll see you then.
Bye.